In this set of movies, we're going to see how the Office applications interact with SharePoint, and I'm going to start with Microsoft Outlook. This is an intentional choice. Outlook is an interesting case. There's actually a fair amount of duplication between some of the features of Outlook and features that are present in SharePoint. I don't see that level of duplication with Word or PowerPoint, but with Outlook, it's very clear. For example, here's a calendar in SharePoint, but Outlook has calendars as well. Here's a contacts list in SharePoint. I have a people list that's the same functionality in Microsoft Outlook. I can also create task lists here in SharePoint, or tasks list that I bring in from project, and I have tasks list available also in Outlook. It's helpful then to really think about how Outlook is used in your organization when you're designing what you'd like to have in SharePoint, because there are huge opportunities here. I have the ability to synchronize contacts, tasks, and calendars so that I can create, for example, an events calendar that I would like everyone to have access to. And they can see that in Outlook. They don't need to copy anything. They don't need to paste anything. I don't need to email anything. I can just create a calendar that can be synchronized to all of the members of my team. Same thing with contacts and tasks. Let's go back to our events calendar and start here, because this is wicked easy to do. If I click on calendar, I have connect to Outlook, and this is fired up and ready to go. Before we do this, I want to point out that this is such a good feature that if I'm given any kind of information that's date and time based, I'll usually try to figure out a way to put it in SharePoint as a calendar, even if it's presented to me as a list. I can always view a calendar differently, as a list, as a calendar, and so on, but I can't connect a list to my calendar in Outlook like I can connect this calendar. Simply point to Connect to Outlook and click. The first thing you'll have is a dialog. This is coming from Internet Explorer, in this case, whatever your browser is, that says, hey, is it okay to have this browser firing up applications on your computer? This is a nice piece of security. Oh, and I get here and it says, do you want to auto-archive your old items now? So I can't do anything else until I get rid of this. Let's switch back. This will happen to you too. Let's do it again. Connect to Outlook. Allow it. And provided there's no dialog box open in Outlook, we'll be in Outlook in just a second. Now Outlook is asking, is it okay to connect this SharePoint calendar here? So notice first you're being prompted by your browser. Now you're being prompted locally. I'm going to click Advanced, and I always do because I can edit the folder name. This app has a great name because I gave it a great name, but it could just as easily simply be called Calendar. And perhaps this is the events calendar, and then there's a vacation calendar, and there's a training calendar. I have the opportunity here to give this a name that I would like it to have. I want you to notice that it says my permissions are read permissions. That may not be exactly the case. In fact, I will have different permissions to this calendar based on my permissions to the SharePoint list. Next, display this every place I log in. You bet. And finally, let whoever owns this calendar decide how often it's updated for Outlook users. In fact, this is probably determined by your SharePoint farm administrator. Just leave it. Nothing you and I need to set. Click OK. Click Yes. Here's my new calendar. It's added to my list of other calendars. Here's my land and hotel calendar, and here's my Team Land in San Francisco calendar with events on it. This is sweet. Now, anything I can do with the calendar, I can do here, so I can overlay this calendar. That looks good. I can close this calendar. I can show it again, though it's right here. If I close my calendar, I can print this calendar. That's a great thing to be able to do. And I don't want to open all my calendars. I have a fair number of them. So I'm simply going to turn on my specific calendar. Like this. This is all working. Let's go back to our month view. Now, other things that I can do. First, if I wish, I can add something to this calendar. I really can. It says I had read-only permissions, but if I have an event that I want to add on Tuesday, remember, here I am in Outlook. New event. Just like that. We'll give that a minute or so. It didn't tell me I couldn't add it. That works pretty nicely. Let's go back to SharePoint now. Let's go to April. Right there. Again, I was told I have read permissions, but I have permission to this calendar. If you need to be able to put items on a calendar from Outlook, talk to your SharePoint administrator. They may tell you no, that they want everyone entering information here in SharePoint for this calendar. That's okay, but I like being able to do it in Outlook as well. What else can I do in Outlook? Let's go see. Let's say I would like to put this event on my calendar because I am going to be helping out with this event. I'm doing the welcome. I can drag this item and drop it on my calendar and copy this selected occurrence. It's a recurring appointment. Now, this is a copy. If this event changes, then this one will not. But I like being able to drag events from this shared calendar onto my specific calendar as a way of knowing I need to be there. If I can create events here, I can delete them too. So I want to be careful to not accidentally delete events. And that is the reason why some SharePoint administrators will set this up so that I would not have permission to be able to edit. Because sometimes I'm editing in my own calendar and I'm going along great guns, and all of a sudden I delete something, perhaps in an overlay view, and it's like, oh no, that wasn't a really good idea. So if I'm always having to edit the SharePoint shared calendar in SharePoint, that gives me another layer of not even so much security as a layer of intentionality. This is what I can do with a calendar. If I don't want to have this calendar any longer, I can simply delete it. You select it, right-click, and choose to delete the calendar. When I do, it says, do you want to delete it and all of its contents? And at that point, sometimes people freak out and go, oh no, I don't want to delete the whole calendar. Don't let that bother you. It's just taking it off this computer. The next paragraph says that if I've made any changes since the last synchronization, the last sender received, they'll be lost. So if I just added 12 appointments to the calendar, I might want to wait till tomorrow to delete my version of it. But notice that whatever has made it to the SharePoint list will remain on the server. And if I want to know that the changes I made are there, I can go to SharePoint and look. What else can we do? Let's go back to SharePoint. Not only do we have a calendar, remember, we have a list of area contacts. I've added a few people to the list just so we have some folks. List. Connect to Outlook. Why? Because this list was created using the Contacts app that synchronizes with Outlook. It's not just a list, it's actually contacts. Connect to Outlook. Internet Explorer prompts me. I say sure. We know what's going to happen next. Outlook will prompt me in a moment and say, is it okay for me to add these contacts? There we are. Click Advanced. Area Contacts. That's fine. Read only again. Same choices as before. Click OK. Click Yes. There are our new contacts. Just like that. For both these contacts and our calendar, what's true is I'm getting a refresh on a regular basis. So if we find out that Pearl Davenport is no longer at Sardo, but is at a different company, and somebody changes this, anybody changes this, anyone with permissions edits it here or in SharePoint, I get the benefit of that edit. This isn't a copy. This is a synchronization. I can use this list in the way I would use any other of my contacts list. It's valid. If I look at its properties, I can use this as an Outlook address book for mail merge. Almost anything I can do with contacts, I can do with this synchronized contacts list. I can share this contact with someone. I can forward this contact. Or I can send someone a link to this contact, which would kind of be a cool thing to do if they were on my team, because why do they need to have these in their own address book? Well, there might be a reason. For example, maybe Pearl's also my cousin, or Pearl's a good friend, and I want to track other information about Pearl. Not just Pearl's work information, but remember when Pearl's birthday is. And by the way, here's information about Pearl's favorite pet, or whatever it is. If it's personal, I might now need to add another contact that's not this synchronized contact in SharePoint. Because if I edit this and I add information, I'm providing information to other people. So if I list her birthday or if I list her home address, that's for everybody. Not so much. But it's not a bad thing for me to modify this with other work-related information that would be beneficial to my team. I'm not going to synchronize tasks with you. It works the same way, except it might be a little more complex if some of the tasks are coming from, for example, Microsoft Project, or if you have a workflow that's adding tasks to SharePoint. Not complex in terms of how it works exactly the same way, but complex in terms of the levels of information that you are receiving. As you're considering the design of your SharePoint site for your team, take a look at opportunities to be able to share events lists, calendars, date and time-based information, or lists of vendors, lists of partners, members of an advisory team, subject matter experts for a project, lists of people that it would be helpful for your team to share. Create the appropriate apps to house that information in SharePoint, and then synchronize those apps to Outlook for every single member of your team. Quick, easy, shared information. Everybody's on the same page.